You?
Hey, I'm good, Jay Hood. How you doing?
We're doing great.
Yeah, we've had a full morning, deal breakers and punch out and the whole deal. It's been a good morning. So now we're into game prep and getting ready for the Texans and the Bears on Sunday Night Football. I personally believe they are going to show up to compete. I expect them to take a step. I'm not telling you they're going down there and shocking the world, but I think this is a better Bears team than people realize, and I expect a hell of a football game. What about you?
That's my hope. You know, the thing about it is there's a lot of things they can do to improve what they did last week. And one of them, and the key ingredient and probably the most important thing, is from tackle to tackle on the offensive line, be way more physical. Give an offensive line presentation that you're going to be the reason that the offense is going to succeed. Don't put it into the hands and the eyes and the arm of Caleb Williams. Now, if they have a complementary running game that all of a sudden starts opening up play action passing because you can become deceptive at the line of scrimmage, and then you provide protection for the receivers downfield and get the tight ends included a little bit more, yes. But the one caveat to that really worries me, and it's always going to be a concern of mine, is the first game that you play in a hostile environment in an indoor stadium when you have no command of the snap count. There's where my concern lies, because when you think of Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter on the outside rushing, and the offensive tackles are getting off the ball that eighth of a second slow, then maybe you give that advantage to the defensive ends. So now Shane Waldron has to have a responsible type of protection to complement Caleb, not put him in a bailout or a disaster situation.
Tom, if you were the offensive coordinator or the head coach of the Chicago Bears and you saw that Nate Davis only played some, but his job was taken over by Ryan Bates, would you start Ryan Bates against Houston, or should Nate Davis be back there again to try to be better?
I would start Nate Davis again, and I would see if it lit any type of emotional fire inside of him. And he started playing a more physical brand of football that they felt that they were satisfied with, because Nate has it in him. He's just got to go out there and do it, because there was times out there that, Ryan Bates got bowled over as well. So it's not like that if they do make the change and go to Ryan Bates rather than Nate Davis that the problem is solved. It's about which one of those two guys are going to go out there and, like I said at the beginning, play the most physical brand of football that can be allowed them. But when you talk about Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat, it's not you're not going to push those guys around. You're not going to get just bowling ball type of movement down the field. And so are these guys going to offer you a little bit different type of football with a 4-man front and more assistance to the guard position from Coleman Shelton, and are you going to get better movement on the inside?
Remember when we talked to Tommy last week, we asked him going into the game against the Titans, what was your letter grade for the offensive line? Tom, you said a C. So was that a C performance or less than against Tennessee?
Great question.
I would give it a C-. Because when I go out and I look at a couple of other offensive lines in the National Football League last year and I see a legitimate physical brand of protective football, that's what I expect the Bears offensive line to be. And so like you said, both of you guys, or maybe it was Cap saying you expect a better brand of football this week in Houston than last week.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is you got to be physical, man. And it's got to be from, if you need, so the first play of the game, they go an unbalanced line. They got Darnell Wright, the right tackle, lined up next to Braxton Jones on the left side. And they have a 6-yard seam created for DeAndre Swift. If you need to do those types of variety lineups, then do them if you can present a more physical approach to your point of attack. But you're not going to be able to do it every play. So, include the tight ends and just get the offensive line off the ball. But with no snap count, it's not going to be easy.
In terms of watching the snap counts for Cole Kmet versus Gerald Everett, I don't understand why you pay a guy $14 million a year and Gerald Everett gets double the number of snaps, basically. Why do you think that was?
Something they saw in the game plan. I don't know if it was the fact that they felt there's going to be more edge passing because of the inside threat of T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons. I that Gerald Everett is more of a stretch tight end than he is on the line of scrimmage tight end. And I expect that, and I hope there's a difference in that game planning this week for Cole. And, Cole is, give me 5-yard completions. Give me 6-yard completions on first down that puts you in a more challengeable second and third down scenario. Because if you think that you're going to put it in the arm of Caleb and you're asking him to hit wide receivers with a limited amount of protected time, then it's going to be difficult for you to get into that second and third and makeable. So if I would hope to think that Cole is going to have a bigger impact in the game and more reps on the field.
Tom Thayer with us on the Cap and J Hood Morning Show on ESPN 1000 and streaming on the ESPN Chicago app. That is a crowded running back room, Tom. I mean, you got to get some extra chairs in there because it's Swift, Homer, Herbert, Jones, as well as Roschon Johnson. So based on what we saw last Sunday against Tennessee, what's the likelihood that Velus Jones will remain in the running back room?
I think he'll remain in the running back room, but I don't know if he'll be a game day active because Roschon Johnson, if he's active and you got Travis Homer who plays all of the special teams, and we know what DeAndre Swift and Khalil Herbert are doing right now, it's going to be interesting to see if they feel they have injury issues at wide receiver. And now Velus is in the wide receiver room this week, or is Tyler Scott and Colin Johnson going to be elevated to the active roster? But if it's strictly running backs, then I have a hard time thinking Velus would be active in that running back room.
Would you think he'd be active at all? Because you mentioned some guys like Tyler Scott not playing surprised me, or at least not being active surprised me. But you just can't keep him on the shelf. There's speed there,
especially if Rome doesn't play.
Yeah, I agree with both you guys, and I think one thing about Tyler Scott, he had a really good conclusion to the preseason. And he made some catches, and he looked like a big play opportunity threat with speed behind it. And if he can go and convert, a couple of short throws into big runs, then obviously he's going to elevate the way they think about him in that receiver room. But, Tyler's got to go out and make some plays. If he gets beyond the defensive back and they do throw it up to him, he's got to go out there and make the big, difficult catch at times. Because when you look at some of the catches that DJ Moore makes, the dude is completely legit. He's 100%, man. But somebody else in that receiver room has to start making those DJ Moore type of catches to give the quarterback more targets to go downfield to. And Tyler Scott is show that he has that ability, but now he has to show that ability with consistency. But that's kind of the same thing we're talking about Velus, is the consistency in an NFL athlete is what you're ultimately looking for. If you can only do it 1 out of 10 plays, then you're going to have a difficult time getting on the field.
From your film study, not so much practice this week, but maybe that also will influence your answer here. But from your film study, was it worse than we thought watching at home offensively? Was it not as bad as you thought? Or actually hit a couple of the passes? Keenan catches the touchdown, or he hits the long pass down the left sideline, or the seam to DeAndre Carter. How would you grade that after watching the film?
The performance of Caleb is exactly what I thought would happen in the first turn in a regular season game, because you just been through 5 months of practice with a red jersey on that nobody can get into your space. Stay away from my legs. Don't get in my follow through. Don't touch me. Don't come into my radius. And now that's completely gone, man. It's get to that quarterback as quickly as possible. So Caleb, in understanding the speed of the game and how it is going to affect your decision-making process, because he tried to hurry some things that he necessarily didn't have to. And there's a lot of plays, I think, after you go back and look at the tape, he would probably adjust or like to have back. To me, I'm just going to readdress the physicalness of the offensive line. If you don't increase that and Darnell Wright becomes more physical, Tevin and Braxton Jones and all these guys, because, there was one time that the left guard tripped Coleman Shelton, and then there was a pass block in the middle. Then there was another time that the offensive line picked up a stunt. They stalemated him at the line of scrimmage. There was a block pass. So, again, it's not just because I'm an ex-offensive lineman, but if you look at what an offense needs to do to complement the growth of a young quarterback, it's making sure you have a physical running game that you can play off of in so many offensive factors.
Watching Tavondre Sweat, 366 pounds, and Jeffrey Simmons and Harold Landry, all these dudes going up against a guy 366 on the interior, would you rather go up against a guy that big, obviously not as quick, or you'd rather have to deal with somebody smaller but much more elusive in terms of athleticism?
I would rather play against Tavondre Sweat than Aaron Donald or a John Randall in his prime or a Leroy Glover or a Randy White. Some of those types of guys, or Keith Millard, that have exceptional MVP type of quickness. Because Tavondre Sweat, I'm never going to block him from the same angle twice. I'm going to have tackle chopping down on him. I'm going to have the center angle blocking at him. I'm going to have a double team and then leave him and let the fullback hit him. I'm going to wham him. I'm going to trap him. I'm going to make the contact so confusing to him, he doesn't know or want to actually get off the ball. And so, in one thing about a big guy like that and having a chance to play against Bruce Smith as a rookie or play against Reggie White as a rookie, if you can use your quickness and your snap count and get your hands to these guys before they get their hand off the ball, a lot of times you can control their body for the length of time according to the play call that you need to. You're not asking to block them for 5 minutes. You're asking to block them for 2.5 seconds. And so you should be able to do that if you keep unconventionally hitting a guy like that.
As always, Tom, we appreciate the time. We'll hear you and Big Jeff again Sunday as the Bears take on the Texans.
Holding you responsible here, buddy. I want a victory when you get on that plane.
All right, man. It's good talking to you.
You too.